Good morning, and I'd like to call the meeting to order on Monday, August the 12th for the Committee of Adjustment. All welcome. We have the full board here. And we'll start, excuse me. Moved by Member Brown, second by Member Bridgman. Be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment agenda dated August 12th, 2024 be adopted. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? No. Moved by Member Stokes, second by Member Grogan Green. Be it resolved that Committee of Adjustment minutes dated July 8th, 2024 be adopted and approved as circulated. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. And would you like to give your little speech?
Of course. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It is required that I make a few statements, then I will explain the hearing procedures. This electronic hearing is being held in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act. The members of the Committee of Adjustment present are Alan Edwards, Barb Bridgman, Ruth Ann Brown, Lisa Grogan Green, and Sean Stokes. I can confirm that we have quorum and that senior staff and planning staff are present. Public input on this August 12th agenda was invited at the following email address, planning@muskokalakes.ca. Now I will explain the hearing process. The planner will provide an explanation and purpose of the application, the date the notice was circulated, and planning staff's comments. All internal and external submissions have been provided to committee members by Friday, August 9, 2024. However, no additional comments were received. The committee will hear from the applicant or the applicant's agent if they wish to add any information or to substantiate their proposal. Please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code for our records. The committee will hear from those in support of the application and those in opposition to the application. Again, please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code for our records. Presentations are limited to 5 minutes unless otherwise permitted by the committee. If you are here to speak on an application electronically, please wait until after the planner presents the relevant application to raise your hand in Zoom. If you are here to speak on an application in person, when asked, please raise your hand, and when you are recognized by the chair, please approach the podium, turn on the microphone, and remain at the podium while you state your comments for recording purposes. The committee will hear from the applicant or the applicant's agent to respond to any questions or concerns raised. The committee will then have the opportunity to ask questions, have a debate on the application, and make a decision based on the information presented at the hearing. Please note that the effect of written and oral submissions on decisions for consent and minor variances, along with the reasons for minor variance decisions, are both required under the Planning Act, and motions are pre-populated with standard wording. However, the committee may decide to add reasons and/or effects to the standard wording after voting on a decision. Motions have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting and are automatically written in the positive to assist in completing decisions as opposed to writing out each resolution. This does not in any way mean that an application is going to be approved. When it is time to vote, members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded. This is not considered a recorded vote. It must be noted that the chair has a vote on each application and can participate in the discussion. There is a 20-day appeal period from the date of the decision. Building permits are not available until after the appeal period and if no appeals are received. Lastly, please take down your pink notice signs that were posted on your property to advertise today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ward. And the first application is B2324ML, and that is 1246643 Ontario Inc. And that is Spice.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The first application to be heard is consent application B2324ML in the name of 1246643 Ontario Inc. I would direct committee's attention to the consent sketch on page 32 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the proposed application is to sever a portion of land and add the severed lot to an abutting lot, which would be the benefiting lot. The reason for this is to correct an encroachment of an existing private on-site sewage disposal system that currently services a two-story garage on the benefiting lot. This application constitutes a change in common lot lines and no new lots are being created. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 19 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Manager of Public Works, and the District Municipality of Muskoka, both stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, stating no objection to the application, but that the building code setbacks to distribution pipes shall be achieved. A minimum setback for the raised bed constructed is 5.4 meters from the distribution pipe to the property line. Lastly, comments were received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, noting the calculated fire response time and recommending that the Fire Smart Homeowners Manual should be consulted to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following: that a satisfactory registerable description deed of the severed lot, together with any required rights of way or easements, be submitted to the township along with a registered copy of the reference plan. That a legal undertaking be submitted by the acting solicitor, which confirms that the severed lot will merge in title to the benefiting lot upon registration of the transfer/deeds, which may include canceling consent if necessary. That setbacks between the private on-site sewage disposal system and the side and rear lot lines on the resultant lot be confirmed by an Ontario land surveyor, and that the configuration of the severed lot be adjusted if necessary to achieve compliance setbacks under the Ontario Building Code and to the satisfaction of the township, and that subsection 3 of section 50 of the Planning Act applies to any subsequent conveyance. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wish to speak on this?
I am.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Edwards and committee members. Terry Ledger, 167 Medora Street, Port Carling, P0B1J0. I'm agent for the applicant. This is to correct an encroachment, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition? Other questions from the members? Moved by Member Bridgman, second by Member Brown, and be it resolved that consent be granted for application B2324ML. That's 1246643 Ontario Inc. Provided the following conditions are fulfilled. 1, that a satisfactory registrable description deed of the severed lot, together with any required right-of-ways or easements, be submitted to the township, along with a registered copy of the reference plan. 2, that a legal undertaking be submitted by the acting solicitor, which confirms that the severed lot will merge in title to the benefiting lot upon registration of the transfers deeds, which may include canceling consent if necessary. 3, that setbacks between the private on-site sewage disposal system and the side and rear lot lines on the resultant lot be confirmed by Ontario land surveyor, and that the configuration of the severed lot be adjusted if necessary to achieve compliant setbacks with the Ontario Building Code and to the satisfaction of the township. And 4, that the subsequent section 3 of section 50 of the Planning Act applies to any subsequent conveyance. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you very much.
And the next application is a 6823 Hill, and that's again Ms. Mays.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 6824 in the name of Hill. The subject lands are known municipally as 4 Florence Island R12. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 51 of the agenda package. The applicant proposes to demolish a 2-story boathouse with an associated boat port / rooftop sun deck and an associated dock, and proposes to construct a new enlarged 2-story boathouse with a rooftop sun deck and a new enlarged dock. The application also proposes to recognize existing docks that exceed cumulative dock width requirements and are as-built. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 10 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, and Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, both stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, noting the calculated fire response time exceeds 30 minutes due to it being a water access only property, and therefore additional fire safety measures are recommended, as well as that the owners should consult the Fire Smart Homeowners Manual to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. The proposed variance is summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following condition: that a site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title to implement the recommendations of the scoped environmental impact study dated October 23rd, 2023, prepared by Sumac Environmental Consulting, and to ensure that the access to the 2nd story of the proposed boathouse, the flood access, is situated above a floodway elevation of 226.7 meters above sea level and has been designed to ensure safe ingress and egress to the habitable space in the 2nd story of the proposed boathouse. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wish to speak in support of this application?
Good morning, Chair Edwards, members of committee. My name is Graham Huizinga, land use planner with Tulloch Engineering in Huntsville, Ontario, 80 Main Street West, P1H1W9. Here on behalf of Mr. Hill as his agent. I'd just like to say generally I concur with the conclusions reached by staff in their staff report. Briefly, I'll say that basically what we're asking a committee to approve here today is the ability to reconstruct the existing 2-story boathouse, expand it, although the expansion will be away from the deficient setback shared between this property and the neighbor. So there will be minimal impact to the neighbor in that way. And that expansion of the boathouse will retain the existing width of the structure that exists today. And then otherwise, as Kaylee mentioned, we're just seeking to recognize the existing developed width of the shoreline structures on the property, which according to the property owner have been in place for quite some time now, decades. So in terms of impact from a minor variance perspective, the impact in my opinion is quite minimal, meets the 4 tests in my opinion, and I'm happy to answer any questions the committee might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I think it's to the planner. First of all, I had some trouble with the with the sketches that have been provided, all I need is a north, south, east, west on all these sketches, if I could. Because it was saying north elevation and west elevation, and I was having some difficulty discerning all of that. But to the planner, it looks to me like that third slip, the 18-foot slip with the extended dockage is really not going to be used as a slip. It's going to be used as what do we call it now? Relax area? Because on one of these, it looks like the slip is half covered. So could you answer that for me? Is that going to be used as an actual slip?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair Edwards, in response to that question, it's my understanding that all three of those slips are intended to be used as boat slips. This is an island property and access is limited. Obviously the importance of accessing the property via the water is greater on water access properties. So the boathouse is going to be for boat access and storage. They do have another smaller dock, which we're also recognizing as part of the variance application. And that, like I mentioned, had been there for decades. And I think that would be the dock that you would consider the sitting dock or the amenity dock. But it's my understanding that this proposed structure for the boathouse is to accommodate boat storage and parking.
Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none?
Member Stokes raised his hand.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Member Stokes?
thanks, Chair Edwards. Just a quick question, comment, I guess, with respect to the photograph that's on page 47, which shows a hot tub that's right beside the water there. And I'm just curious as to whether we have any committee has any issues with respect to that, particularly given, in light of the recommendation regarding flood access with respect to the boathouse.
Yes, thank you. Would one of the staff like to comment on that? Yes, Mr. Sharp.
Good morning, Chair Edwards and members of committee. Would look to the applicant's agent perhaps to confirm some detailed information with respect to this particular structure, but I would note that hot tubs are permitted on sun decks that are set back less than 50 feet from the high water mark, which are considered to be legal non-complying. In this case, based on staff site visit and the photographs, it looked like the deck had been there for quite some time, and the hot tub would be permitted on the deck. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Moved by member Grogan Green, second by member Stokes. Be it resolved that application A 6823 Hill to demolish an existing two-story boathouse with an associated boatport / rooftop sun deck and associated dock to be constructed. A new enlarged two-story boathouse with rooftop sun deck with a new enlarged dock, and to recognize the existing dock is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a side yard setback of 21 feet at the closest point for a two-story boathouse with a rooftop sun deck, and 2, to permit a maximum cumulative dock width of 81 feet. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and are subject to the following conditions. 1, that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title to implement the recommendations of a scoped environmental impact study dated October 23rd, 2023, prepared by SUMAC Environmental Consulting, and to ensure that the access to the second story of the proposed boathouse, the flood access, is situated above the floodway elevation of 226.7 meters above sea level, and has been designed to ensure safe egress and egress of the habitable space for the second story of the proposed boathouse. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried.
Thank you.
And the next application is A4424. And that is, again, Spike.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A4424 in the name of O'Leary and SCHUY. The subject lands are known municipally as 1140 Morinus Road, unit number 14. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 118 of the agenda package. The purpose of the application is to recognize an as-built sun deck at a reduced front yard setback and a as-built over width ramp, as well as as-built buildings that exceed the maximum permitted lot coverage. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 10 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 comments were received to date. So comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, and Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, both stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, noting the calculated fire response time and recommending that the Fire Smart Homeowners Manual be consulted to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. The proposed variances are summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak? Okay.
Yes, hi, good morning. I am the applicant's agent, Adam Lenny, the permit guy, 35 Covered Bridge Trail, KROESBERGEN, Ontario, P1L1Y1. Through you, Chair, and thank you for hearing us today. This deck was built because the client suffers from MS and is in a wheelchair. It was under their assumption that they didn't need a permit to build this because they thought it was 100 square feet and they didn't think one was necessary. So that's what brings us here today, as there was an order to comply on the property. The homeowner just wishes to get her wheelchair down closer to the water so she can watch the water activities of her grandchildren, just down closer to the water. There won't be any massing or anything on the small landing. It's only for her to overlook the waterfront area, and it'll be used 12 times a year. I'm here if you have any further questions. Thank you for hearing us.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition? No? Are there questions from the members? Yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I guess I have a question for the permit guy. I understand the wheelchair part of it, but there's a ramp going down to another deck with the steps down to the dock. So a wheelchair could not get down to the dock. So I'm having great difficulty understanding why you need that ramp.
If I may, through you, Chair. The ramp that goes down to the left, yes, there's paths all over the front of the property that are made of stone, bedrock. And that just leads to one of the paths that go along the waterfront area. And I'm not sure if it's visible in the pictures. I didn't actually look at that. No, but on page 111 of the agenda, where that you're referring to the ramp that goes off to the left there, I presume?
Correct. It goes
Yes.
down to a path, but then there's steps. So your client cannot get down to the
No,
dock.
she doesn't go down to the
Right.
dock. No, the purpose is to go to the paths, not to the dock. No. The purpose of this oversized landing and ramp was so she could see the waterfront and see all the activities down there. But no, she doesn't go down to the dock.
So forgive me for all this detail, but it looks to me like there's a path that could allow her to get to the deck, not using the ramp.
Yes, that could be true. Yes.
All right, then my concern is this is an 11.5 foot wide ramp and it's very visible in terms of the waterfront. And
Mhm.
so I was just trying to understand why it was needed. And I think what I'm hearing is it really isn't needed to get to that deck.
It is there to potentially get off of the deck. Yes, I mean, it's down the ramp to get on it, and then could go to the left to get off it and continue on past around the property. It was just more of an egress thing for the client.
I guess I'd need to see the rest of it. It looks to me like the wheelchair could go back to the path and then continue with whatever's on the property.
Yes, that is true. Yes, it could.
So it isn't really necessary for your client to get around the property? That's
Well, no,
really
it
what I'm
is.
trying to drive at.
Oh, yes, no, it's absolutely necessary for her to get around the property. Her state of is deteriorating quickly with the MS, so she wants to be able to use as much as the property while she can in a wheelchair.
No, and I get that, and I'm certainly sympathetic to that, but I guess what I'm seeing from this picture is that if there's paths all over the property, the path from the first set of steps coming down looks to me like it may go off to the right. So is it possible to access other areas from there?
I'm trying to remember the property, but the access from the top of the wide ramp, we'll talk about, that access is a set of paths that go to the left and the right from there. But yes, the ramp going down there takes you to another path that goes closer to the water, and then basically comes back up and around the backside of the house at a like a 6-to-1 slope, so that way the wheelchair will get up and around.
Okay, so there is access to all of the rest of the property without this ramp?
I cannot confirm or deny that. I just believe that that ramp aids in getting to the rest of the pass. Because I'm not sure, what I'm trying to picture, forgive me, is that there's a set of steps that go from the upper set of path to the lower set of path that this continues that egress to, which I believe is the case.
Okay, so so thank you very much for that. Now I have a question for staff. And maybe my question, I'm not sure anybody here can answer it, but I certainly understand wheelchair access, but the width that's needed is not 11.5 feet for that. I don't know what the legal part is when we see buildings with ramps for wheelchairs. So I'm going to ask staff, because always it's my understanding, and maybe this will be helpful for people watching, that when we see as-built things, we're supposed to imagine that it hasn't been built yet, and would we approve it if it came to us to be built? So I don't understand why an 11.5 foot wide ramp was approved. So I guess I need some help in understanding that from staff standpoint, and I think Mr. Sharp might be the one who wants to answer that.
Go ahead, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair Edwards, and thank you for your question, Member Bridgman. I'm not an expert with respect to accessibility. Typically, if that were to come up through the planning process, it would be something that the township's chief building official would advise me on and provide his expertise on. But I'm hearing from Mr. Lenny that his client, the applicant, does have an accessibility consideration. With respect to the width of the dock, I would just remind committee that it's not necessarily about a numerical amount of the variance. So in this case, yes, the ramp is 11 feet in width. The maximum permitted width of a ramp within the front yard within 66 feet of the high water mark is 6 feet. But setting that aside, the numerical amount, setting that aside, it's ultimately, I would say, about impact. And in this case, I think what we're looking at is a ramp that's quite low to the ground, low profile. It is on an inclined plane, and therefore staff are less concerned about it acting as a sun deck. Because it is on an inclined plane, I don't think it would function as such. I think in this case, it actually is going to be a ramp. The property is fairly well vegetated. and it complies with all other requirements of the zoning bylaw. So hopefully that helps answer your question. Happy to provide any clarity. Thank you.
Thank you. Supplemental?
No, thank you, Mr. Sharp. So I tell you my other concern with this, and it's not about mobility, and I want to make sure that this client has that mobility. I don't want that misunderstood. But 11.5 feet, we have an aging population here, and I can see a lot of 11.5 feet ramps being asked for going forward. And so I would like to split this, and I don't know whether committee will want to or not, into approving the deck as is and asking that the ramp be brought into compliance. 6 feet is still wide enough for a wheelchair to get down and someone to help them. So that's not inhibiting the mobility part of it. But I am concerned about setting up a precedent of 11.5 feet for a ramp. So those are my thoughts.
Are there any other comments on this, on the ramp? Anybody else like to? Okay.
I don't know what to say in terms of it being precedent setting. I do know that, like, I personally have helped people in wheelchairs, and to get down to that dock, it would be very difficult, for example, to do it from the boathouse. So you kind of do want a ramp and then just a few stairs, the stone steps, if she does want to get to the dock. I have trouble believing that she's only going to want to be on that sort of upper lookout, which I think is why that it's a big deck there, is to allow another person to sit beside her, I would imagine. Yeah, it's unfortunate that we have to worry about precedent, because otherwise I would want to approve it as it is. I don't know how anyone else on the committee feels about it. I'd like to hear the opinions.
I agree. I get what you're saying about precedents, and we definitely don't want to see these popping up all the time, but I'm with you too, as far as people being able to use their waterfront and mobility issues. So I know yeah.
Mr. Sharp, and I'll just ask you, was the building permit applied for all this work?
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Maybe I'll just comment on the precedent piece. I don't think it's uncommon for this committee to approve variances from front yard setbacks or from front yard setback requirements. I can't speak specifically to any given application, but I'm fairly certain that in the past there have been variances granted to permit wider ramps than required by the zoning bylaw. And with respect to the Ontario Building Code, yes, I believe that the structures in question would be subject to the Ontario Building Code and would require a building permit. Mr. Lenny, who's likely more well-versed in code requirements than I, can confirm. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lenny, are you up on the Ontario Building Code?
Yes, through you, Chair. Yes, once we, if this is to be approved, then we are ready with structural drawings to approve to go for the building permit. We couldn't prior without the variance, if that's the question, or is it the question on the? Maybe clarify the question.
What is the standard? What is the standard width for a wheelchair?
For a width on a ramp for accessibility, no, I do not have that information in my head. So I'm sorry, I am not much help with that question. This wasn't built for a size other than it fit the topography, and that to give lots of room for wheelchair and the helper and the help around her, just for egress.
Okay, thank you.
Was the
Mr. Stokes, Member Stokes, did you have a comment?
No, I also share the concern of setting precedents. And I'll be honest, I'm not, this is probably outside the scope, but I'm not sure what use the ramp has, because you do have that deck, which is, adjacent to the other small platform. And I don't know that the view is any different from the platform versus down the ramp, but at any rate, I appreciate Member Bridgman's comments and I don't like setting these sorts of precedents.
All right, my next question then is, Member Bridgman had said passing everything but the ramp, and that was your thoughts on that? Would you support the 11-foot wide ramp? Or,
I would support, I'm on board with Member Bridgman's suggestion.
okay, anyone else? Do you have a comment on that?
I would be prepared to support the ramp as is.
As is, okay. And Member Grogan Green,
I guess I'm gonna support it as is as well.
you'll support it as is, okay. Okay, we'll leave that in then. Oh, yes,
Through you, Chair Edwards, I did just want to clarify for committee, and I'm going to share my screen if that's okay. I just wanted to clarify that the ramp in question is not the one shown on the screen to the right that leads down to the steps. That's that's compliant. That ramp is compliant. The ramp that we're speaking about, that's 11.5 feet in width, is actually situated behind the sun deck.
so what is the width of the one going down to the steps?
6 feet.
6 feet.
It's compliant.
6 feet all the way.
Yes, I just wanted to ensure that we were speaking about the correct ramp.
That we have to look at it as if it's not there. And if people don't take up building permits and build something. So I think they're won't come down.
Yep. I just heard mention to that ramp off the side there, so I just wanted to ensure that we're looking at the correct ramp. Thanks.
All right, I'll read the moved by Member Brown, second by Member Grogan Green, be it resolved that application A 4424 O'Leary Sherry to recognize an as-built sun deck, ramp, and buildings is hereby approved with the following variance being granted: to permit a front yard setback of 10 feet at the closest point for the sun deck, to permit a ramp to be 66 feet from the high water mark to be 11.5 feet in width, and to permit a maximum lot coverage of 5,564 square feet, 10.1 within the 200 feet from the high water mark. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? Yes?
So thank you for that because I was confused. So I guess what I want to ask now is the ramp is directly behind the deck. So you could make that deck bigger and ask for more lot coverage variance and not have that ramp?
Yes, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. No, the ramp would be required, or sorry, the sun deck rather. The sun deck would be, it would have to remain as approved by committee. It couldn't be enlarged. It's already within the setback requirement, so it couldn't be enlarged as of right.
No, I understand that, but
Yeah.
if we didn't have okay, I see what you mean. If we didn't have that issue, I see what you mean. Okay. All right, but I did misunderstand that. So my concerns are far less than what they were before. So I apologize. I took us on a long journey to get me straight.
Nope, that's fine. That's what we're
I
here for.
didn't appreciate the location of that ramp either. I was confused as well.
Okay, so I've read the motion. All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
And the next application is A 4524, and that is Miss Beamish.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 45/24 in the name of DUNLAP-VINSON Holdings, Inc. The subject lands are known municipally as 1031 Lake Joseph Shore. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plans on pages 136 and 137 of the agenda package. The purpose of the application is to construct a new swim dock. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 17 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Nick Schneider, the Township's Chief Building Official, both stating that the 2 rock formations to the south of the property do not appear to be owned by the applicant. If these rock formations are not in the ownership of the applicant, a building permit cannot be issued without approval from appropriate provincial bodies. Comments were also received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, noting the calculated fire response times and recommending that the Fire Smart Homeowner Manual be consulted to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. The proposed variance is summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following. 1, that a site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title to implement the recommendations within the fish habitat assessment prepared by Riverstone Environmental Solutions dated May 2nd, 2024. And that approval by the province be granted if necessary for construction of the dock. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wish to speak on this?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Edwards and committee. My name is Nate Koshman. I am here representing DUNLAP-VINSON Holdings, which is my family. I'm located at 735 North Lombard Avenue in Oak Park, Illinois. This property has been in our family for 112 years, with very few changes during that time. Our request here is to build a dock to replace one that collapsed in the 1980s. I just want to note briefly that our property is on a peninsula and we have an extensive shoreline. There is a boathouse on one side of the peninsula, and this would be on the other side of the peninsula where there is no built improvements on the shoreline. I'm here to answer any questions that the committee might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition? Good, thank you. Questions for the members? Seeing none. Moved by member Stokes, second by member Bridgman, be it resolved that application A 4524 DUNLAP-VINSON Holdings, Inc. to construct a new swim dock is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a maximum cumulative dock width of 121.5 feet. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following conditions. 1, that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title to implement the recommendations within the fish habitat assessment prepared by Riverstone Environmental Solutions, Inc., dated May 2nd, 2024, and 2, that the approval by the province be granted if necessary to construction of the dock. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. And the next application is A5124, and that's Ms. Spice.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A5124 in the name of KROESBERGEN. The subject lands are known municipally as 1034 Quinn Road, Unit Number 4. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 165 of the agenda package. The purpose of the application is to recognize an as-built deck, an as-built dock within the required side yard setback and an as-built open storage structure within the required front yard setback. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 10 days in advance of this meeting, and 6 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, stating no objection to the application. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, stating no objection to the application, but if approved, a building permit would be required for the dock. And then comments were also received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, noting the calculated fire response time is outside of the rural response time objective, and thus additional fire prevention methods are recommended, as well as the owners should consult the Fire Smart Homeowners Manual. 3 letters of support were received from neighboring property owners. They were submitted with the application. So a letter was received from Karen Wang and Ethan, the owners of 1034 Quinn Road, Unit Number 3, the abutting property owners to the east, stating that they have not experienced any inconvenience due to the distance between the docks and that they consent to the application. A second letter was received from Mark and Amanda Hammond, the owners of 1034 Quinn Road, Unit Number 5, abutting property owners to the west, stating that they have no issues with their or with this request for a minor variance. And lastly, a letter was received from Pascal and Carol Mongrain, area property owners at 1326 Windermere Road, Unit Number 18, stating that they have reviewed the documents and have no objections to the variance. So the proposed variances are summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. And staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wish to speak on this? Yes, come forward, please.
Hello, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Bob KROESBERGEN and this is my wife. And we're here to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. Anything else you'd like to say? Just for the record, your address and
Our home address or the property address?
Whichever one you get your mail at.
Okay, it's 12023 Fernhill Drive, Denfield, Ontario, NOM 1P0.
Okay, thank you very much. I have to ask, was there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition to this application? Other questions from the members? Yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I'm in support of this application, but the one question I might have is in the planning report, this was compared to a gazebo, which is allowed. And so I'm wondering if we might, in the motion, not allow a gazebo to be built by right, and then it would have to come back and another committee would be able to look at it in terms of what's on the shoreline. I mean, I'm just throwing that out as a suggestion. That might be something we might want to look at.
For you, Chair Edwards, and thank you for your question, Member Bridgman. Certainly, it would be a bit unorthodox, but a condition could be added that the approval of the storage rack be subject to no gazebo. And I suppose if you're going that route, that you'd also want to restrict a sauna that would also be permitted at reduced setbacks. So that would certainly be possible. It would just need to be a condition. And
if I could clarification, Mr. Sharp, because maybe I'm unclear on that. We approve this and I said, I'm in support of that. Then that just sort of acts as that doesn't negate those other two buildings also being put on there, does it?
That's right. It wouldn't negate a gazebo of 200 square feet, 15 feet in height, as close as 3 feet from the high water mark, and or a pump house or a sauna 100 square feet in size and 15 feet in height. So it's ultimately, you know, if you feel that those buildings would somehow change your opinion with respect to whether or not you're supportive of the variance, I think that's ultimately what it comes down to, whether you want to impose that type of condition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just curious.
Okay, now I would just want to ask what the other members have any questions or comments on Member Bridgman's remarks. Yes.
So if we made that a condition, it would be one or the other, because they would still be allowed one or they could still either have a sauna or a gazebo, even if we said, because it's one. Right?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I think in our analysis, I think we were just indicating that a similar size structure would be permitted as of right if it was used for a specific purpose and it met all of the requirements in the zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw allows certain minor accessory structures to be set back closer than 66 feet from the high water mark. And what those structures are is a gazebo and or a sauna or pump house. You can have two, but you can't have three, and they all have to comply with the setback requirements, size requirements, and height requirements. I think in this particular instance, staff didn't recommend that measure, given that the property is quite well vegetated across the frontage. There is the one open sort of amenity area, but I don't think that staff were concerned that, you know, built form was going to dominate this property. I think natural form is going to continue to dominate, and I don't think we would have a concern with the applicants necessarily utilizing rights that are already granted through the zoning bylaw. But of course, you know, it is the purview of committee to consider those things. And if that were the case, then certainly you could impose a type of condition that would restrict those minor accessory buildings within the front yard area. That would allow the canoe rack, but it wouldn't allow those other types of buildings to be constructed in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on that? And how does the committee feel about that? Yes.
I'm happy to go with the recommendation of the planning committee.
Okay, great, thank you.
Just one question for committee. In the discussion, it does mention that the applicants verbally advised staff of their intention to undertake plantings at the shoreline, and it could be formalized through an amending site plan agreement along with securities if desired by committee. I'm not sure whether committee believes that that's necessary.
Would the planner like to answer that? I think we said it was fairly well vegetated, I believe.
Through you, Chair Edwards, yes, staff feel it is quite well vegetated. There is currently a site plan agreement on title for the property. So if committee felt necessary to amend it to add additional plantings, we can do so, but staff feel that it is well vegetated as is. Thank you.
Okay, does that answer your question, Member Stokes?
It does, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Member Bridgman, second by Member Stokes, be it resolved that application A 5124 KROESBERGEN to recognize an as-built dock and storage structure, canoe stand / rack is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a front yard setback of 26 feet at the closest point for a storage structure, canoe stand / rack. And 2, to permit a side yard setback to be 3 feet at the closest point for a dock. These variants are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. So you have it.
Thank you.
Excuse me. And the next application is A 5724, and that is Curry, and that is Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 5724 in the name of Curry. The subject lands are known municipally as 1350 Clear Lake Road, Unit Number 7. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 195 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to demolish an existing dwelling with an attached sun deck and a shed, and to construct a new dwelling with an attached sun deck, which will exceed the maximum permitted lot coverage within 200 feet of the high water mark. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 14 days in advance of this meeting, and 4 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, and Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Operational Services, stating no objection to the application. Comments were received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, stating that the calculated fire response time is 15 minutes and 28 seconds based on the average shoot time of the fire department in the last 36 months, and a travel distance of 4.2 kilometers from the fire station. This response time is outside of the NFPA rural response time objective of 14 minutes. When response is outside of the rural response time objective, it is prudent to subject developments to additional design requirements beyond the minimum in the building code, potentially including fire sprinklers, increased spatial separations, and building materials of higher fire resistance ratings. As construction will be occurring on the property, we encourage pre-planning with the fire department concerning fire risks during this vulnerable phase of development. Consideration should be given when landscaping to include fire-resistant plants and materials to help prevent the spread of wildfires. The Fire Smart Homeowners Manual should be consulted to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. Lastly, a letter of support was received from Donna DeLello, area neighbor, expressing support for the proposal. The table summarizing the extent of the proposed variance is in the staff report and was included in the circulation materials that can be found in the agenda package. Relief is being sought from the maximum permitted lot coverage within 200 feet of the high water mark. 8% lot coverage is permitted and 8.8% is being sought. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following conditions: that the metal shed be removed as intended, that the dock not included on the original site plan be removed or brought into compliance with zoning provisions, and that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title, along with securities for retention of existing vegetation and plantings. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crowder. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wish to speak on this?
So good morning, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Melissa Markham, 1025 Rebecca Lane, Huntsville, Ontario, P1H2J6. I'm here today representing the owners of the subject lands, Ken and Catherine Curry, and the owners are here today with me. The application before you today is the result of discussions with township staff. As you've heard, the subject lands are currently developed with a dwelling, shed, and a dock. The owner is proposing to demolish the existing dwelling and shed and construct a larger dwelling on the property. The relief being requested would permit an increase in lot coverage within 200 feet of the high water mark, and no additional development is proposed within the shoreline yard. We've gone through the 4 tests and we agree with the staff report as proposed here today. As I said, the owner is in attendance and is aware of the staff report recommending a site plan agreement be entered into along with the securities for retention of vegetation and plantings. We will work with staff regarding this plan to reestablish an understory along the shoreline buffer. We've also reviewed the staff report and comments with regards to the existing dock. The owners provided that they have just recently purchased the property and the dock is in the same location as that which was constructed in the 1960s. Today, they're looking to work with staff to move the dock to be in compliance with the zoning bylaw. We're aware of a letter of support submitted in support of the application and no other comments received, in opposition. The owner is requesting that the application for the increase be approved as it meets the 4 tests, represents good planning, and we're here today to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition to this application? Okay, questions from the members? No question. I have one. When you did the site plan and there was a dock not shown on it, I believe. Is that right?
3 years. The original submitted application, you're right, did not include the dock on the application.
And why is that?
The dock, we believe, was under building permits, and we weren't aware that any relief was required for the dock, but it was updated. It's been included with all the setbacks as requested.
Okay, no, I just wondered because like doing it, I think they asked for showing all basically structures, which would have been on that. I just wondered why your firm slipped up on that.
That's correct. The dock wasn't shown, but we did add it onto the dock. We had added in the calculation.
Okay, well, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Moved by member Grogan Green, second by member Brown, be it resolved that application A 5724 Curry to demolish an existing dwelling with an attached sun deck and to demolish a shed and to construct a new dwelling with an attached sun deck is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 5,155 square feet. And that's 8.8% within 200 feet of the high water mark. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following conditions. 1, that a metal shed be removed as intended. 2, the dock not included in the original site plan be removed or brought into compliance with the zoning provision. And 3, that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title along with securities for retention of existing vegetation and plantings to retain and revegetate the shoreline buffer. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Yes.
Apologies, Alan. Did I hear you say 5,000 square
Well,
feet? I just want to make sure that the lot
Well, I
coverage.
got 5,1,551.
Okay, it should be 1,551 square feet.
Well, that's why I sort of stumbled on that. There's
Okay.
a 5 in there that maybe shouldn't be, and that's why I stumbled on it because I couldn't read what you were putting on there.
Do you mind if I just take a quick look at the resolution?
Sure.
I just want to make sure that we're not. Thank you. Thanks.
Because I was going like it couldn't be millions.
Yeah, that's right. No, for sure. I can see why you're a little confused.
See why? Okay. That's better. I will correct that. 1,551 square feet. Just so everyone's aware, any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried. See? Right.
You have to.
Yeah. Hmm? Oh, I better. No. I have a blank page here, so we'll just ignore that one. And the next application is A 5824 Schnur, and that is Ms. Crowder again.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 5824 in the name of Schnur. The subject lands are known municipally as 14 SR 408 Shore. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plans on pages 235 and 236 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to demolish a portion of an existing dock and to construct new dock additions. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 12 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, and Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, stating no objection to the application. Comments were received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, stating that the calculated fire response time exceeds 30 minutes. This response time is outside of the NFPA rural response time objective of 14 minutes. When response time is outside of the rural response time objective, it is prudent to subject developments to additional design requirements beyond the minimum in the building code, potentially including fire sprinklers, increased spatial separations, and building materials of higher fire resistance ratings. As construction will be occurring on the property, we encourage pre-planning with the fire department concerning fire risks during this vulnerable phase of development. Consideration should be given when landscaping to include fire-resistant plants and materials to help prevent the spread of wildfires. The Fire Smart Homeowners Manual should be consulted to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. The table summarizing the extent of the proposed variance is in the staff report and was included in the circulation materials that can be found in the agenda package. Relief is being sought from the minimum required setback from the westerly side lot line projection for a dock addition. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this? For it or against it? The questions from the members? Okay. Moved by member Brown, second by member Bridgman, be it resolved that application A 5824 Schnur to demolish a portion of an existing dock and to construct a new dock addition is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a side yard setback for a dock addition to be 12 feet at the closest point from the westerly side lot line projection. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Would everyone like a comfort break at this point? Yes? Okay, we'll take a 10-minute comfort break. Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. And the next application is A 5924 Milligan, and that is Ms. Beamish.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 5924 in the name of Milligan. The subject lands are known municipally as 1025 Appian Way, Unit 4. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on pages 254 and 255 of the agenda package. The purpose of the application is to construct a new dwelling with an attached sun deck and to recognize an as-built dock. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 10 days in advance of this meeting, and 5 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Nick Schneider, the Township's Chief Building Official, stating that an outstanding order to comply exists regarding the cumulative dock width, and that it appears dock additions were constructed without the issuance of a building permit. If the application is approved, building permits will be required for these works. Comments were also received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, noting the calculated fire response time and recommending that the Fire Smart Homeowner Manual be consulted to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. 2 letters of support were also received from area residents John Berman and Robin Berman, owners of 1025 Appian Way, Unit 6. The proposed variances are summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Please note that as stated in the report, variance B for the minimum required front yard setback of a sun deck is no longer required. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved, subject to the following: that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title along with securities to retain and revegetate the shoreline buffer, and for the preparation and implementation of a satisfactory stormwater management brief prepared by a qualified professional engineer. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this?
Good morning, Chair, and committee. Oh, too far back. There we go. Sorry about that. Good morning, Chair and committee. Thank you for your time today. As always, appreciate the staff support. My name is Jack Florence of the Conan Group in Port Carling, 3 Armstrong Point Road, P0B1J0. I'm the applicant's agent. Just here to answer any questions for the application. As sort of noted on the staff report, the applicant is proposing to rebuild an existing, a new dwelling at 35 feet from the high water mark, which is actually an increase from the 31 feet that is currently there. It should be noted that a number of properties along the road or shoreline are constructed fairly close to the water, so we're not actually creating more density near the water. That whole area seems to be fairly close to the water and encroaching on that 50-foot mark that would exist today if people were to rebuild. There is a new build there that seems to be very close to the water. I think it's about 6 feet actually, so that is a pretty densely developed area already. The reason primarily why the building wouldn't be shifted further backward is because significant site alteration would be required, as well as blasting, which would further disrupt the lands as well as the shoreline. The new cottage is actually 4 feet further than what is currently existing, which is actually a increase in relief, like it's a relief. And additionally, we'll be adding plantings if this is approved as per the site plan agreement, which will help revegetate the shoreline. It's got some really nice existing retaining walls there that can handle plantings, which will be great to create a shoreline buffer. And as far as the stormwater management report goes, that can be done by a professional engineer from our office. It's not a problem at all. Completely agree with that. And yeah, I have no further comments.
Thank you very much. I have to ask, anybody else here with support? Anyone in opposition? Questions from the member? Yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I'm wondering about I have no problem with the redevelopment of the dwelling. I just have a question about the old dock, and is it referred to as the dock on the rocks? It looks like in the site plan on 254, old dock on rocks.
Through you, Chair Edwards, yes, the 10-foot wide dock is the old dock on rocks.
Okay, so if that stays, it has every right to be 66 feet long with a building permit. Am I correct?
Through you, Chair Edwards, in this case, as it would be an over-width dock, it's my understanding that it would be limited to kind of as it is today. No further length or width extensions allowed.
Okay, so I would actually like that as part of the motion if everybody else would agree with me, and then I'm good.
That would be fine to add into the motion.
Member Stokes, I'll be curious in just a second, just when we get this from Mr. Sharp.
Through you, Chair Edwards, I've just added a second condition stating that no dock additions be permitted.
Yep. And Member Stokes, go ahead.
Yeah, in light of the fact that, as was mentioned, there was building done without permits, and it also mentions in there that there was a dock that was supposed to be removed. Now it's 20 years ago now, but and was not removed as required. And given that on page 249 makes reference to the fish habitat and says an evaluation of potential impacts to fish and fish habitat and not been requested. However, one can be requested by committee if desired. Again, just putting it before committee as to whether, given these past instances, do we want to request a fish habitat study, or does staff feel that that would be necessary or beneficial, I should say?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. My understanding is that this is done, so there is no construction that is going to be done except on the dwelling. So it won't have any impact on the water. So I don't think I see why we need a fish habitat study. Am I, Mr. Sharp?
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. Yes, the area fronting the subject property, the shoreline is identified by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry as type 2 fish habitat, meaning that it's not limiting to fish populations, as would more sensitive habitat such as spawning habitat. So in this case, staff didn't recommend any type of scoped environmental impact study to address fish habitat. We would also note that the dock has been there for quite some time, and it doesn't appear as if that particular dock has moved in its location. So I don't think that there has been an impact. It was just required to be removed as part of a previous building permit. It was never removed. The applicant has applied to recognize it and has paid double the actual fee as per our fee schedule for recognizing buildings and structures that have been constructed not in compliance with the zoning bylaw requirements and for which relief is being sought. So they have paid that additional fee. Instead of $1,400, it would be $2,400. So again, somewhat unrelated to your question, but I just thought it would be noteworthy to mention that. Thank you.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Moved by member Stokes, second by member Grogan Green, and be it resolved, application A 5924 Milligan to demolish an existing dwelling with an attached sun deck to recognize an as-built dock to construct a new dwelling with an attached sun deck is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a front yard setback of 35 feet at the closest point for a dwelling. 2, to permit a maximum cumulative dock width of 82 feet. These variances are granted as shown on a plan attached to the notice of decision and are subject to the following condition. 1, that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title along with securities to retain and revegetate the shoreline buffer and for the preparation and implementation of a satisfactory stormwater management be prepared by a qualified professional engineer, and 2, that no dock additions be permitted. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Okay. And the next application is A 6024 Mills, and that is Ms. Beamish.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 60/24 in the name of Mills. The subject lands are known municipally as 1490 Acton Island Road, Unit 5. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 275 of the agenda package. The purpose of the application is to demolish an existing one-story dwelling and associated sun deck and construct a new dwelling with an attached sun deck. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 13 days in advance of this meeting, and 7 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, and Nick Schneider, the Township's Chief Building Official, both stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, noting the calculated fire response time and recommending that the Fire Smart Homeowner Manual be consulted to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. 4 letters of support were also received at the time the application was submitted from area residents David Mills, John and Amy Graham, Paul and Janie Mills, and James and Maureen Pierce, all stating support for the application. The proposed variance is summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak?
Hello, I'm Matt from Sketch Design Build. I am the applicant for this file and here representing the owner today. And yeah, I'm here to answer any questions you guys might have. The goal here was to tear down the existing cottage and build a new one. And there's a lot of trees on this property, so it's important to the owner that we do not remove any more trees than necessary. So that's why we're kind of trying to position the cottage in the same location while pushing it a little bit back further from the lake. So
Can we have your name, address, and postal code, please?
I'm Matt Reed, Sketch Design Build, 19 Collier Street, Unit 2, Barrie, Ontario, L4M1G5.
Thank you. Okay, Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition? Questions from the members? Seeing none. Moved by member Bridgman, second by member Stokes, be it resolved that application A 6024 Mills to demolish an existing dwelling and to construct a new dwelling with an attached sun deck is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. One, to permit a front yard setback of 36 feet at the closest point for a dwelling. This variance is granted as shown on a plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And the next application is A 6324 Ridgewell and Gow, and that is Ms. Spears.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 6324 in the names of Ridgewell and Gow. The subject lands are known municipally as 300 Lucky Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 288 of the agenda package. The purpose of the application is to permit the construction of a dwelling on as-built footings at a reduced front yard setback. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 10 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Douglas Holland, the township's fire prevention officer, noting the calculated fire response time and recommending that the Fire Smart Homeowners Manual be consulted to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. Lastly, comments were received from Tim Sopko, the township's manager of public works, stating that a reduction in setbacks from the road allowance can present future maintenance issues and increase costs associated with tree maintenance. Public Works would prefer that the setback from the road allowance be achieved if at all possible. In response to this comment, staff do wish to clarify for committee that the setback from the front lot line to the as-built footings has been confirmed to be 36 feet, measured at the closest point. However, we have included a variance for 35 feet to allow for some flexibility. A setback of 35 feet exceeds the minimum setback requirement of 25 feet from a lot line abutting a public street as per section 3.23 of the township zoning bylaw, but it does not meet the rural RU1 zone minimum front yard setback requirement of 50 feet. So the proposed variance is summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time, but are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is the applicant or applicant's agent here wish to speak on this? You can put the mic on there.
Good morning. Mike Ridgewell, 10 Irene Drive, Barrie, Ontario, L4N0Y7.
Okay.
I don't have anything to add unless you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have to ask, is there anyone else in support? Anyone in opposition? Questions from the members? No questions? Moved by member Grogan Green, second by member Brown, be it resolved that application A 6324 Ridgewell Gow to construct a dwelling on an as-built footings is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. One, to permit a front yard setback of 35 feet at the closest point for a dwelling. This variance is granted as shown on a plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
And I don't think there's any new business, any correspondence. Yes.
Just a quick comment, if you allow me, Chair Edwards. I'm delighted to see Mr. Pink here as the CAO. I think this is our first meeting with him as that, so it's great. Congratulations again.
Yeah. Thank you. And moved by member Brown, second by member Stokes, be it resolved, the meeting adjourned at 10:38 a.m. All those in favor? That's carried. And I was telling Mr. Sharp on the break, it was really refreshing to see that all the reports were